Hey, what's up guys? This is Bryce Van Hoosen, and today we are talking all about whammy bar tricks. Alright, so while this isn't technically a sponsored video necessarily, I am doing this partly and because of the newly released V2 Lok-N-Roll compensated nut for Floyd Rose or any other locking tremolo that is now out in black. And the fine folks over at Lok-N-Roll did reach out to me and provided me with some nuts and asked me if I'd do a video showing them off. So here we go. But that being said, that doesn't really change anything that I would have to say. And it's not even really a review of the nut itself. I've kind of already done that. I'll link to that in the description if you want to check out what a compensated nut is and why Lok-N-Roll is so awesome. But yeah, I really like these things and I would be buying a ton of them anyway. I just feel very, very lucky and fortunate to be kind of partnered with them and given some nuts in exchange for some videos, so hell yeah. All right, so with that out of the way, let's dive in. Let's talk about some whammy bar techniques and kind of the favorite ones that I will usually use in my playing arsenal. All right, so number one, we're gonna start out super basic here, and we are going to talk about the classic dive bomb. All right, so basically what we're doing to get the full effect of the dive bombery, basically just hitting any open string and taking the whammy bar and pushing it down. And then it kind of just has that sort of effect, real easy. Obviously, you're gonna get the best range of motion and the best ability to go down with something like a Floyd Rose, right? But you could do this with a, you know, traditional kind of Strat bridge as well. You might not be able to get it quite as low, right, with the strings all hanging out the body like that, but you know, you do you. All right, so number two, the other whammy bar technique that I really like, and not every guitar can do this. So if you have something like a top-mounted Floyd Rose that doesn't have a lot of neck angle access to sort of pull the bar up, right? The hardware is actually going to get in the way of the body here. You might not be able to go the other way, but if there is a good deal of space in between the actual Floyd Rose, the bridge unit, and the top of the body, you can definitely get some good range of motion, and that is pulling up. Right? This is kind of the, you know, bridge equivalent of doing sort of like a bend, right? You're taking the pitch, you know, we're starting here and ending there. All right, so you're just increasing the pitch, pulling the bar up. And so what I like to do to make things a little bit more interesting with that and a little more out of control sounding is we can do a harmonic, basically a harmonic dive bomb and then pull up. So this is kind of like the Dimebag Darrell from Pantera style of doing a whammy bar trick, right? So the way that this sounds is like this. Whoops, let's get a better one here. All right, so what I'm doing there is I'm going, right, I'm basically taking the bar, we're kind of dipping it down, and then hitting, whoa, and sort of, we're dipping the bar down, and then we're taking our first finger, right, and sort of flicking the actual string there, so the G string, and then, while it's down, I'm gonna take my finger and hold it over a harmonic here, so in this case, it's gonna be the 3rd fret. And then once I hear that that harmonic is properly rung, I'm gonna pull up on the bar. So again, that sort of sounds like. All right, and so basically kind of the rule is the closer you sort of get to the 12th fret, it kind of goes lower and then it sort of goes a little bit higher. I don't really know the exact science of how that works, to be completely honest with you. I'm sure somebody could explain it much better than I could in the comments, so if you could do that, that would be appreciated. But I do know that, you know, the easiest ones, at least for me with my setup, to hit are 5, 3, and 2 on the G string. So technically, or most of the time, I'm usually doing this kind of thing on those frets. So that's the 5th fret, 3rd fret, and then the 2nd fret. Some of these can be somewhat difficult to hit kind of in the heat of the moment, and I think this is kind of really where sort of knowing your gear and knowing how your amp and sort of distortion and being able to control all of that stuff and being able to boost your amp with a pedal sort of comes into play. So right now, as you can hear, those harmonics are sounding pretty strong on my end. And so what I am using, right, so I got an EMG James Hetfield bridge pickup. Technically, you kind of always want to do this stuff on the bridge pickup, not really the neck pickup. And that is going from my guitar into my pedal board, which this is going to sound like complete overkill, but it totally makes sense if you want a very harmonically rich, sort of distorted signal where these kind of things just fly off the fretboard. But I'm going into my modified Boss CS2 compression sustainer. And then I am going from there into the Lichtlerm Audio Ritual pedal, which is like a souped up boosted rat. So it's like a rat with an extra boost, right? So almost like 3 different distortion / gain stages before we even get to the amp, right? So the compressor, the rat, and the boost. So all 3 of those things together making for a very harmonically rich / very noisy signal hitting the front of the amp, which right now I am using this PV 5150 block letter, this old school original, yeah, from 1994. So taking it old school for this one. And then from there I got a Master Effects EQ FH in the effects loop, just to kind of, you know, keep everything nice and tight sounding. And I'm also running a noise gate because this sound would get incredibly just insane if I didn't have that. So again, you're gonna want to use a bunch of different stuff to kind of try to get that sort of sound. As you start to take stuff away, it gets a lot harder to hit these things and to make them sound correct. So one other thing that you can do, and I got this from an Ola England video, is this harmonic on the 2nd fret is especially hard to hit. Right, 3rd fret, no problem. 5th fret, no problem. There we go. It's like, you know, every couple of times I feel like I'm able to hit the harmonic on the 2nd fret, which gets really high, really out of control. So one other thing that you can do is use a wah. So if you just take a wah and you click it on and you leave it all the way in the down position, those harmonics really start to jump off the fretboard. Something about just hitting the front of the amp with a lot of gain and that really sort of annoying kind of sound just makes this stuff really pop. So I'm gonna kick on the wah. Let's demonstrate that now. All right, so as you can hear, way noisier because the wah not going through the noise gate. So, and this is the Dunlop Custom Audio Electronics wah, which has yet another boost in it. So guys, adding as much gain as possible. We're not always gonna play with this much gain. In fact, I think it doesn't sound very good for rhythms, but for all of your whammy bar stuff, it's great. There you go. It's like you almost like can't miss the harmonic. It's pretty awesome. All right, so next up, one of my absolute favorite techniques to just kind of throw into the middle of a lead section, it always sounds cool, is the Flutter. So basically all I'm doing with that is I'm just hitting a note, and then I'm gonna take my pinky finger here and just hit the very tip of the Floyd Rose tremolo bar. And then you can sort of just do a lot of like hammer-ons and pull-offs and stuff like that and just, you know, kind of keep hitting it. Or you can combine that with harmonics and get even more ridiculous sounds. It does tend to get a little bit out of control just because, you know, this hand that would be doing all of the muting is sort of pulled away from the bridge, then you can't really mute anymore. So, you know, having something like one of those Groove Gear things to go over the top, at least while you're recording, makes this stuff sort of a little bit more clean, and you can get some really nice clean flutters out of there. All right, so a word about fluttering, and I've said this before in other videos that I've done, but you can't really do a flutter if you have a tremolo stabilizer, and a tremolo stabilizer is something that I like to use, at least live, a lot. So I don't really, you know, it's tough to kind of go from city to city with this thing sitting, you know, in a case in a trailer, in a van or something like that, going through a bunch of different temperatures, that sort of thing, and then to have it be rock solid during a show. So that is why I choose to use a tremolo stabilizer, and unfortunately that means that, you know, live, I can't really do a lot of those real crazy boing kind of fluttery sort of things. So you sort of have to pick, you know, what is going to be the most conducive for you to get through the show. Do you want the flutter, or do you want a little bit more stabilization? Whatever. All right, so fluttering and a stabilizer are the exact opposite. You need this thing to be not stable, at least just sort of held in position by the pulling of the springs inside and the strings in order for there not to be a defined 0 point. It's got to freely float. And so, that being said, you also need to have kind of lighter springs in the back. Definitely play around with this and see how light you can go, / how heavy it needs to be, that sort of thing. I use the light duty springs because I like pretty light strings. For the light duty ones, I'm usually running 3. Otherwise, I'll just use 2 springs and crank the claw in, and you get a really kind of spongy sort of sound that flutters a lot. It can be, you know, a little much for rhythm, because if you hit it too hard, it'll sort of flutter as well, but take your pick. What do you want? What is kind of the sound you're going for? And, you know, having these things set up on different guitars is a great excuse to increase the instrument arsenal, if you will. All right, so if I'm not doing flutters live, then what am I doing? Well, this is where the classic dip comes into play. Now, a dip is basically where you're going to press down on the whammy bar and then kind of pull it back up, or sort of let it come back up in a more controlled way than you would with a flutter. And it sort of sounds like this. Right, so it's kind of a similar vibe to something with a flutter, where the pitch is starting, you know, lower. It's just not really going higher like it would with the full fluttering kind of setup. So in this guitar, I have a tremolo stabilizer, so there's a defined 0 point, so I'm not really able to do kind of the full effect there. So the dip is what I got. And so basically, you know, you're just kind of starting with it sort of down and then letting it up. Right, so I'm pressing down on the bar and then hitting the note, and this is happening kind of in a split second, and then once the note is ringing, I'm letting the bar return up to pitch. All right, another thing that you can do, and this is actually kind of what I feel like the tremolo bar, or vibrato bar, as it technically should be called. Leo Fender called it a tremolo bar, but that's a story for another time. But basically, you can use this to just kind of add a lot of sort of wider vibrato to a note versus, you know, just using your fingers, right? So we got our regular vibrato. Right, so that has a sound, and we can also do kind of something different. We're gonna do something different, totally different sounding with the bar itself. And of course, you know, this is always obviously a little bit more difficult to do with something that has a stabilizer. So again, you know, the more stability you have, the more well-defined 0 point you have. So it kind of makes for something that sort of gets a bit locked at the 0 part. So this isn't something that I personally do a lot. Maybe just sort of with chords. Just kind of a very subtle shake there. And again, you know, because your right hand is sort of preoccupied with, you know, this sort of motion, right? It makes it so it's harder to mute the rest of the strings. So again, if you're recording, having kind of one of those Groove Gear things is gonna make your life a little bit easier. All right, so one more, and this is the last one that I will leave you with. This is one that I call Mario going down the tube to go to the sewer. Sort of just reminds me of that, but basically, it sounds like. All right, so basically what we're doing with that one is we are hitting the harmonic. I'm gonna hit it with the 3rd fret on the G string. Right, similar to the way that we sort of did the pull up, right? Down, hit the harmonic. And then you're just gonna grab the bar and sort of shake it in a weird way going down. And there you go, you're going down the tube, and now you got some sort of annoying water level. That's what's coming up after that, I guess. All right, and that's all I got for you. I'm sure there's plenty of more stupid whammy bar sounds that we can come up with. So let me know any that I forgot and should probably research in the future. I would love to hear what you all have to say about that. And if you've never tried any of this stuff, give it a shot. Let me know what you think. It's a lot of fun. Why do we play guitar unless it's to make really obnoxious and dumb sounding noises? All right, like and subscribe if you enjoy this sort of nonsense, and I will see you next time. Be sure to check out Lok-N-Roll, who are really doing some next level stuff with locking tremolo nuts. I love these things. They've ruined me for the standard kind of Floyd Rose tremolo nut. They really are amazing. Check them out. Linked in the description. You will not regret it. All right, I'm gonna get out of here. I'll see you next time.